What is going on, everybody? Welcome to today's brand new installment of For the Love of Wrestling. I am, of course, your host, the Renegade of Wrestling, JJ Williams. Happy Thursday. Hopefully, everyone is having a great day so far today. Going to be discussing AEW Dynamite today, as we always do on Thursdays, last episode of the week before the weekend. 3-day weekend because of Veterans Day tomorrow for some of us. Hopefully, everyone's got some fun plans in store for them for the weekend. But again, we're not here to discuss all that. We're here to discuss wrestling and AEW Dynamite in particular. And I'm go ahead and I'll say this right out the jump. I felt like for the most part this was a better episode than most as of late. The show started off with Tony Schiavone and MJF. MJF was talking about having been pinned by Jay White last week, and Jay White being able to do something that not a lot of people have been able to do as of late, how it only takes 3 seconds. He video calls Adam Cole and begins to talk to him, and once again, Cole tells him that he needs to consider Samoa Joe to have his back. He's got that tag match for the ROH titles coming up at Full Gear, and he's got no partner. You know, Joe would be a great person to do that, to be that guy. MJF is then confronted by Daniel Garcia, Daddy Magic Matt Menard, and Cool Hand Angelo Parker. And MJF starts laying into Daniel Garcia in a way that I really enjoyed. As he starts telling him, you know, I see a lot of myself in you. You know, am I going to get the sports entertainer? Or am I going to get the professional wrestler? It's not like you have a stellar win-loss record, but I see something inside of you. You know, very, very babyface promo for MJF to deliver. But I kind of see where he's coming from because Garcia has that raw talent that needs to be molded. And now that he's not under the wing of Chris Jericho and the Jericho Appreciation Society, and instead is kind of running with these goons in Matt Menard and Angelo Parker, despite how much I may like them as a team, then Garcia needs something, man, to branch out on his own. He says that he's going to give him an opportunity, going to go ahead and give him the title shot that he was challenged to. They go off, and Roderick Strong and the Kingdom come into play. MJF just wants like no part of him. So he walks away, and Roddy starts talking to Adam Cole, who's still on the video screen. And it's like, man, did you see that? Did you see that? That's something that the devil would do. Still trying to push his agenda of MJF being the devil to Adam Cole. And he's fed up when Cole hangs up on him, says that it's time that he reminds everybody who he is. Which I'm definitely looking forward to seeing where that develops to, because I'm a big Roderick Strong fan. I have been for a while. He's one of the guys I saw in the independent scene back in like 05, 06, 07, long before he made it to the big companies. He was Ring of Honor at that point, I think, coming to Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, but he hadn't made a name in NXT or anything like that yet, or even TNA. So I'm a be happy to see Roddy start doing some stuff, but gotta wait for his neck to finish healing, which we all know he's milking it. I almost wonder if he's the devil, and that's why he's trying to build Cole to believe that MJF is the devil. But alas, We'll get there when we get there. First match of the night, MJF versus Daniel Garcia for the AEW Championship. Fantastic opener. Lots of one-upsmanship in this match. Garcia looked good. I don't know if I could say that he looked like he would be a believable world champion down the line, but he definitely showed that he could be a main eventer. You figure there's those times when you need a main eventer and a main event match that's not a title match. Things like Rampage, Collision, even to a lesser extent, Dynamite. And Garcia proved that he could be in that main event slot and deliver. MJF won with an armbar submission. Post-match, MJF wanted to show his sportsmanship with a handshake from Garcia, and Garcia was going to do it, but Daddy Magic and Angelo Parker pulled him away twice to prevent the handshake. We then got a Mark Briscoe video package, kind of highlighting his history. Excuse me. Rough night last night, guys. Apologize. Get a video package highlighting the history between Mark Briscoe and Jay White. While Mark Briscoe talks a little bit, talking about how he knew Jay White when Jay White was still cutting his teeth in the business, couldn't grow a beard to save his life. It was an interesting video package, and I want to give some kudos to Tony Khan and the rest of his team for finally heeding some advice and putting together a video to detail why this matchup between these two matters. It's one of the things that we here at the Jeff Meacham Network Multiverse of Media have been criticizing Tony Khan for a long time, is that he books these matches that to us casual fans look like he just drew names out of a hat. And you talk to somebody like a Noah Foster, and he'll tell you the history between these two guys. And that's great. Okay, so there's a little bit more than just two names pulled out of a tumbler. But AEW doesn't tell you that. They don't show you that. They don't highlight that. And I will say, ever since the Tuesday Night War, where they got their asses handed to them by NXT, they've stepped their game up when it comes to that. And they've begun trying to make you understand where these talents are coming from and why they are interconnected in these matches. So huge shout out to TK and his team for this video package, because otherwise it would have made no sense to me. We then had Darby Allin and Sting versus the Outrunners, and this was basically a squash match. Sting deserves better than this, but I guess they were saying on commentary this was only the second time Sting has ever wrestled in his entire career in Portland, Oregon. So, okay, whoop-de-doo. You got Sting another match in Portland. You couldn't have found anybody better to give him a match than the Outrunners. I mean, these guys look like the Wish version of the Rockers. Like, they just look bad. They can be great in-ring wrestlers. We wouldn't know because they only get thrown into squash matches, but they look bad. Like, man, if you're going to do a job match, I don't want to see these guys job either, but at least give them like Christopher Daniels and Matt Sydal. Those guys we can get a good match out of for the Stinger. But the Outrunners did bump like crazy, and they did get a little bit of offense in against Darby, but Sting got the win with the Scorpion Deathlock. It was bad booking, in my opinion. Steen definitely deserves better. What up, Keen Mike? Good to see you in the chat room. Yeah, Steen's last tour, and we get this. Waste. Exactly. Again, they've got enough teams on their roster that they could job out and still give a better match for Steen and Darby than this. Like I said, I don't want to see Christopher Daniels and Matt Sydal as jobbers, but like, damn, at least that would be a banger of a match. We then had Tony Schiavone, Hikaru Shida, and Tony Storm backstage interviewed in black and white, as is the timeless tradition, damn it. But I digress. Great promo. I love the build they are giving these women. You know, Tony Storm talking about how Wembley was supposed to be her big moment going into the UK as champion, but then Hikaru Shida happened, and she's going to get her payback basically at Full Gear in Los Angeles. And under the bright lights of Hollywood, Tony Storm's going to get her comeuppance. And I hope Timeless Tony does win. I have nothing against Hikaru Shida. Let me repeat that. I have nothing against Hikaru Shida. But Timeless Tony Storm needs to go over in this match. Period. Point blank. End of story. We then had Swerve Strickland versus Penta El Cielo Miedo. And this was another tremendous match. Quite possibly match of the night. Definitely neck and neck with Garcia and MJF. Both men went all out. We had a destroyer from Penta to Swerve on the hardest part of the apron there, where the metal meets the wood. You guys hear us talk about it all the time on commentary. We had Swerve get the win with the Swerve Stomp. There was just some great back and forth action here. Like, I couldn't even keep up and detail everything. But again, this was probably match of the night, right next to Garcia and MJF. Post match, Adam Page came out and put Swerve through a table, getting that momentum rolling as we go into Full Gear, which will be 1 week from Saturday. And of course, we will have coverage of that across the multiverse of media. So much good stuff in store. Make sure you tune in for that. We had a Bullet Club Gold promo, and this was just kind of meh to me because it's starting to feel redundant with these. You know, I feel like Jay White and Juice Robinson are saying the same things over and over in these promos at this point. And the fact that the guns are there, yeah, I got 2 words for you, guns up. It's like, man, I want Jay White. There's a part of me that wants Jay White to win. I'm not going to lie. But I feel like we need to keep MJF with the belt at this point. And if Jay White and the Bullet Club Gold can't evolve this angle in the next week and a half, then I don't want to see Jay White win. Even though I would love to see Switchblade as the champion, they need to evolve this angle. What up? Jeff is here finally. Sorry I'm late. Rough night. It's all good, bro. Daniel says he'd like to see Hangman versus Swerve be last man standing. This is only match 2. We do have At World's End in December, Daniel. Could always run Swerve versus Page back there, part 3. And they could do last man standing there. We then had a Don Callis family Kenny Omega promo that was kind of spliced in with video game footage, and I'm not sure what the video game was or the purpose of it. It was interesting, but weird. I don't know. I enjoy the Callis family Omega Jericho thing that's going on, but this video package promo just had me scratching my head like, what the hell? Yeah, Daniel agrees. He says there's a part of him that wants to see JY champion as well. We then had a backstage promo with Renee Paquette and the Golden Jets. And man, oh man, if this was not my highlight of the night, for real. They talked about having first it's just Jericho and Omega, and they talk about having friends in Kota Ibushi and Paul White, and how the Callis family didn't think that they had any friends. And then they get the Young Bucks to interrupt. And the Young Bucks, and especially Matt Jackson, just so salty about Jericho being with Kenny. And it they're going back and forth, and like, yeah, maybe once this match is over, we can get back to doing elite stuff because that's what we're supposed to be. And Jericho goes on this tangent about how the three of them and him were kind of the foundation of AEW. And Matt Jackson's like, it was us and you just cashed paychecks. Like, you were never a part of it. And they talk about how they're a better tag team than Jericho and Omega. And they issue the challenge, at Full Gear, Jericho and Omega versus the Bucks, with the Bucks guaranteed title shot on the line, which unfortunately crushes my theory of the Bucks calling their shot for the tag titles in LA. Another bad booking decision by Tony Khan. They should have taken advantage of that hometown crowd for the Bucks. But it was Kenny Omega that owned the night. Watch this.
And then maybe you'll clean up your act, and maybe, quite frankly, you'll start acting like real adults instead of a bunch of sissy, whiny, bitchy children.
That's not the first.
Like, dude, Kenny Omega coming through with everything that I have been feeling about the Bucks for a long time, but especially going back to All Out and Brawl Out. It was so good. Kenny Omega, I already didn't hate on him as much as I was hating on the Bucks coming off of that Brawl Out thing. But man, Kenny Omega just became like my new favorite dude in AEW with telling them off the way he did. It was so good. I'm probably going to get copyright pinged for running that. I don't even care at this point. If this one episode doesn't get to make a whole lot of money because of running that clip, it's going to be worth it just to have aired that, because I got giddy when Omega ran off at the mouth. Put it to you like this. AEW television is the only thing I get live out here on the West Coast. I watched the East Coast and West Coast feeds just so I could see it a second time live on TV. A bad feeling to go with the... Oh, Daniel says, I have a feeling the Bucks could join the Callis family. A bad feeling to go with the Bucks heel turn. Here's the thing. If the Bucks join the Callis family, I'm going to stop caring about the Callis family. I like the Callis family right now. I think it's a great heel stable of up-and-comers looking to make their marks in the business. Konosuke Takeshita, Sammy Guevara, Kyle Fletcher, Powerhouse Hobbs. These guys are the future of the business. The Bucks are past their prime. You put the Bucks in the Callis family, I will give not a fuck. That's true. That's true. The Bucks could still cash in during the SoCal run. Can't cash it in on Friday, though, because that'll be before Full Gear. And the match at Full Gear is for the opportunity. After the match with the Jets, possible they can book it versus as one of the first matches on the card. And then they could cash in their opportunity later on in the night. Teen Mike says, boo Bucks. Daniel says, so do I. Callis doesn't need them. You know what, Jeff? That's not fair. That's not fair. Gun to my head, you're making me choose. I'm going to say the Bucks have a slight edge over Candace. Very slight. We're talking like half a point away. We then had a meat division match for the Ring of Honor TV title as Samoa Joe defended against Keith Lee. And again, this was big meaty men slapping meat, but big meaty men slapping meat that could fight a cruiserweight style. We all know about Samoa Joe and his X Division run and how even though the phrase existed before he went to TNA Wrestling, the phrase, it's not about weight limits, it's about no limits, existed for the X Division. And Samoa Joe was like the perfect person to fit that mold. Keith Lee is kind of a newer generation of that. Some of the stuff that Keith Lee does, Keith Lee should not be able to do for a man of his size. So it was a great match, hard-hitting, fast-paced. Keith Lee with a German suplex to Samoa Joe that rocked the ring. And I was like, oh, damn. It was a fantastic match. Joe got the victory via submission. And then post-match, Joe vacates the TV title because he wants a shot at the AEW World title. Definitely gave an option C feeling to it. But with Joe trying to help MJF, why not keep the Ring of Honor title until he's ready to actually get that match? This BS after Joe and Keith, though. You talking about the vacating of the title? My boy Keith Lee jobbing like crazy. They didn't let Keith get the belt. Yes, sir. Okay, yeah. I didn't consider it BS. I just considered it bad placement in the storytelling. I'm all about Joe trying to pull the option C method and relinquish his TV title to go after the AEW title. But when you've got MJF versus Jay White, when you've got Wardlow, when you've got all these other people that are like in the pecking order, they need to do something here. And apparently they're going to explain it on Ring of Honor TV tonight. So hopefully we'll get a little bit of an explanation come Collision, considering most people don't watch Ring of Honor TV. We then had an Orange Cassidy promo backstage, and he's with Hook. And he basically starts talking about the whole loop that the international championship went on, from him losing it to Mox, Mox to Phoenix, Phoenix to him. And it was a little bit confusing, but what I got out of it was the fact that he was saying that he needs to beat Mox in order to feel complete as the champion. He got the belt back. He's defended it a couple times. That's great, but he hasn't beaten the person that defeated him. Once he defeats Mox, he'll feel like he's whole. And the biggest part of this backstage interview that intrigued me was Orange Cassidy taking off his sunglasses, getting serious for a minute. You actually saw him and you saw his eyes, not just the guy in the gimmick behind the shades. From there, we went to the Guns versus the Bollywood Boys. Squash match next. Save your squash matches for Collision. Save your squash matches for Rampage. Dynamite needs to be the A show. We don't need squash matches on Dynamite. That's a big no-no. You want to have a squash on Rampage, get an extra match into the hour? Cool. You want to have a squash on Collision, help further a storyline or a talent like Wardlow that you're trying to push? Cool. Dynamite needs to be squash free, and we've already had 2 of them. We then had a Mox retaliation promo to Orange Cassidy, where he kind of starts talking about, what kind of example are you setting for a guy like Hook with the way that you carry yourself? And then Mox just started verbal diarrheaing. I lost focus with what Mox said. And again, remember, I watched both feeds and I still couldn't get a gist of what Mox was trying to say. But we're going to have a match. I forget when they said it was going to happen. It's before the pay-per-view. Either Dynamite next week or Collision this week. And it's going to be Hook and Cassidy versus Yuta and Mox. We then had a Wardlow promo talking about how he was held down by MJF for years, and it's time for Wardlow to finally get what he deserves, to ascend to the level where he deserves to be. Thank you, Keen Mike. The match is going to be on Dynamite. And just Jeff says 100% agree. The era of squash on the A show ended with the Monday Night War. Yeah. Again, if Raw and Dynamite were going head to head on a weekly basis, maybe I could understand it because there's the war happening. But when the shows are so separated like they are, use the squashes for Rampage or Collision. But don't overuse them on those shows. I think this past week there was like 3 squash matches on Collision. You don't want to overdo it either because that's time that could be developed for other talent that you're actually trying to push or given to the women so that they don't just have one match at the 9:25 time slot every week on the 2-hour broadcast. Speaking of, we go from the Wardlow promo to the 9:25 timestamp, and it's time for our women's match of the night. Julia Hart versus Red Velvet. Decent match, but predictable. My biggest issue with this match was it was predictable. Red Velvet is in her first match back, returning from a knee injury, I believe, because she's wearing a heavy brace. And Julia Hart's been getting pushed like crazy. So while I guess it was always possible that Red Velvet could have gotten a surprise upset victory in her return, We knew Julia Hart was going to win this match. She did. She defeated Velvet with a moonsault and then put her in the Heartless submission post match. This triggers Sky Blue to come out after the match and kind of stand face to face with her. Chris Statlander and Willow then hit the ring, and Willow goes immediately to Red Velvet to kind of tend to her, make sure she's okay. Statlander gets in between of Sky and Julia. I feel like they've got the TBS title division booked better at this point than they have their actual women's roster division, the World Women's title. Because the TBS title, man, you've got Chris Statlander as your champion. Then you've got Julia Hart, Sky Blue, Willow Nightingale, Red Velvet. Now, all these people are just kind of like right in that bubbling area where the world title is all about Shida and Tony. And nobody else is even really kind of fizzling in that area. They need to do something to strengthen the World Women's Championship, which is why a second match in a 2-hour show would help them with that. Even if you put a women's match at the 525 and the 625 and put them in the same quarter hour for each hour, because you want to be predictable like that. 2 matches a night. And then, crazy, I know, stay with me. Let the main event on Rampage go from 2 matches a week to 3 or 4 or even 5. And that's how you build a women's division so that it can actually rival the knockouts in the NXT women's division. Because right now, I would say that the AEW women's division is the weakest in the States. Hot take, my take. You want to debate me? Super chat. Simple as that. Jeff says, doesn't mind the booking other than the match quantity for the moment. An A program for the world title, B program for the TBS. The problem is that the TBS title has like 3 programs, and the world title only has 1. Daniel says, if Sky Blue finally turns heel and Jordan's forces with Julia Hart, I hope it can lead to a better women's tag division. They don't have a women's tag division. That's a whole other thing that they'd have to develop. We then had RJ City interviewing the debuting Mariah May, first appearance. And she basically alludes to the fact that she's there because of Toni Storm. You know, she's there because Tony went to Japan, so she went to Japan. Tony came to AEW, so now she's in AEW. I'm wondering if this is going to be kind of like the Mickey James Trish Stratus stalker angle. I heard Bossman Rift point that out last night on his review. Make sure you guys check out the NoDQ.com reviews every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. But I'm curious to see where this Mariah May chick goes, because it doesn't matter if they don't book her right. And the biggest issue that is plaguing AEW right now is they have too many talents under contract and they're not pushing enough talent. I hate to say it, but they legitimately need to do brand splits. They need to go through the roster, have Set people for Ring of Honor that you can only see on Ring of Honor TV. Set people for Collision. Set people for Dynamite Rampage. And there needs to be no crossbreeding. I don't need to see the Ring of Honor champions on my AEW shows. I don't need to see my AEW champions on the Ring of Honor shows. I don't need to see somebody from Dynamite on Collision, from Collision on Dynamite. That's how you spread the talent out. Make steady programs and get people exposure. Jeff says, again, don't mind one program versus 3. It's too much to fit into 200 characters, and he doesn't want to derail the whole show. Gotcha. Daniel says, I know it could be a start of a better one, and Mariah May does feel like a Mickey Trish Stalker vibe. This brings us to the main event. And this, I'm going to be honest, this is the main reason why I went back and watched the West Coast feed, because there was so much going on in the main event. I had to go back, rewatch it so I could take notes, and it paid off. I got a whole page of notes here for this match. Jay White versus Mark Briscoe, with Jay White's title shot at Full Gear on the line. First off, it was a great main event by two men with a storied past. Again, shout out to TK and his production crew for putting the video packages together to kind of detail how far back these two guys go. We saw a Fisherman Buster and the Froggy Bow both connect from Jay Briscoe. We had a Kiwi Crusher and the Blade Runner from Jay White, with the Blade Runner getting him the victory. After the match, MJF hit the ring to cut a promo on Jay White. Basically says that Jay White's going to have to kill him to win the title, because for the first time ever, he's not fighting for himself. He's fighting for Adam Cole. He's fighting for us watching at home. He's fighting for everybody in the ring, because he's not just a scumbag. He's our scumbag. Jay White walks around with a pretend gun, and will he be able to pull the goddamn trigger and put MJF down? The lights go out, and the Devil's henchmen attack the Acclaimed backstage. Daddy Ass and Platinum Max get the crap beat out of him. Anthony Bowen gets thrown through a glass window, which right there, I think that guy that threw Bowen through a glass window, that's Marty Jannetty getting his payback for the barbershop, goddammit. I digress, and I'm kidding, but if you know, you know. The Devil then appears on the screen and disappears like he has been. MJF runs to the backstage area, checks on the Acclaimed, and is approached by Samoa Joe, who's just kind of laughing the entire time. You're running out of friends, champ, and walks away. And that's how the show went off the air. MJF distraught that the Acclaimed got the crap beat out of him. Which leads us to the $1 million question once again. Who is the Devil? Who do you think the Devil will be when he's unmasked? Daniel, if you watched Open Mic Night this past week, we had a long conversation about it. Some of the names that were brought up were Adam Cole, Britt Baker, and before you guys start scoffing at the Britt Baker, that goes back to the Doja Cat video that they showed last week. And during the part of the song where they said she's the devil, Britt Baker was on the screen making devil horns. So people are trying to tie the fact that that video saying she's the devil and showing Britt could allude to the fact that she is the devil in the storyline. And with Adam Cole laid up in the hospital, she can be the one that's physically there. Some people are saying that there's two devils. And both of them are doing it. Cole's the one on video screen, and Britt is the one when they need someone there in person. There was conversation about CM Punk being the devil, and the whole firing was just a ruse. Greatest trick the devil ever played was convincing the world he didn't exist. Convince the world that CM Punk has been fired from the company, and then you decide to bring him back as the devil, made the world believe he didn't exist. Let's talk about David Finlay, leader of Bullet Club in Japan, kicked Jay White out of Bullet Club. Claims there's only one true Bullet Club, while Jay White's operating Bullet Club Gold out here. And what does Jay White have to do with this? Well, you got to figure the first person that got attacked was Jay White. All this is going on in the MJF storyline during the time he's feuding with Jay White. So there's a few different theories. King Mike says that all the masks are making me think it's ex-WWE guys. That's a fair shout. We did do the math, and thinking about the firing that happened not that long ago with Dolph Ziggler and Mustafa Ali, Shelton Benjamin, and those guys, but the 90 days hasn't cleared yet. So I'm not sure if it's going to be those guys, but we'll see. We'll see. I definitely feel that they'll be unmasked at Full Gear, probably after the main event or during the main event. And then Jeff, of course, going back to the Britt Baker, she's the devil in disguise. Oh, yes, the devil in disguise. So that about wraps it up for today as far as Dynamite. Overall, like I said at the outset, I feel like this is one of the better episodes that they've had in a while. Squash matches notwithstanding. Because of the squash matches, I'd probably give it about a B+ personally. What do you guys think about the episode today? Let me know in the comments. I'm going to do like I always do, take a few seconds, about a minute and a half, run a couple of really quick trailers. Super chat if you'd like to dictate the conversation or ask any questions. Otherwise, when I come back, I'll post any last comments about last night's Dynamite, and we'll get out of here. See you in about 90 seconds. We are back. Lots of good stuff coming up across the multiverse. Open mic night specials, Disney karaoke on November 18th, immediately following Full Gear. Lots of watch-alongs coming up just this month alone still. We've got the Friday Night War on the 17th, where we'll be doing Collision, Rampage, and SmackDown all on the same night. Full Gear the following day. We've got the Thanksgiving Eve Dynamite Watch-Along Survivor Series. Then December, we've got Deadline and Final Resolution on the same day. No Rest for the Wicked, plus End of the World, plus Final Battle. So much to come before the end of the year. Daniel says that Dynamite is a solid A. Also, I think MJF retains at Full Gear only to drop it at World's End, quite possibly, to whoever is the devil. That's a fair shout. And then Jeff in the chat room beating me to the punch wants everyone to remember that tonight we've got back-to-back coverage on NoDQ.com. Talk Wrestling, 4 o'clock Pacific, 7 o'clock Eastern. No DQ and AV, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 o'clock Eastern. Back-to-back coverage from Jeff motherfucking Meacham and the boss man, Aaron Rift, celebrating 25 years of NoDQ.com. Must-see television. Don't miss it. Be there or be square, as they say. But Huey Lewis once said it's hip to be square. And after all the hullabaloo of yesterday, WWE basically confirmed 3 more watch-alongs for us in Philly in April. Hall of Fame, Stand and Deliver, Raw After Mania. Damn it. We are going to be busy guys. But that is it for today. Enjoy your 3-day weekend. Make sure you guys tune in on Monday as I recap all the shows of the weekend, Rampage, Collision, SmackDown, and so much more here on For the Love of Wrestling. We appreciate your love, your support, and your viewership. And I will see you guys on Monday.
The Jeff Meacham Network's Multiverse of Media. For over 15 years, the recognized symbol of excellence and the standard bearer in coverage of sports and entertainment.
Thank you, JJ. Appreciate you.